It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Tabor's Bluejays assistant track and field coach, Coach Jonathon Wood. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very good. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college track and field?
Yeah, growing up, I joined track probably my 8th grade year, and then I joined cross country my junior year. And I'll be honest, I definitely hated cross country at first, but throughout that first season, it really kind of grew on me. It's definitely a hard sport, but you learn a lot about yourself, and you push yourself like every single day. And obviously, hitting the PRs really kind of lets you know like, hey, the training's working. But I just really kind of fell in love with running, especially in college. I had two really great coaches, and I learned a lot about the sport. Then after college, I kind of wasted a couple years of my life, and then I got into teaching. So I definitely went into coaching a non-traditional way. I was originally going to be a physical therapist, but then I ended up being a teacher. I started off as a volunteer coach, and then I was able to be the head track coach and head cross country coach at Berryville for a little bit. And I just really fell in love with. I enjoy coaching a lot more than I did running. It's just there's a lot of life lessons I think you can learn from running because when you start off your day with like a hard speed workout, especially, it makes the rest of the day really easy. So I enjoy bonding with the kids, and it's nice to be around people that love and enjoy running as much as you do because I know not everyone understands the sport and has the love for running that I do. So having the opportunity to be around people that share that same passion, like the fact that I get paid to do that is astounding to me. So really, it's the relationships I learned is really why you do it. Which that's what most coaches are going to say as well. You care about your athletes more than anything.
As a collegiate athlete, what was that experience like going to Ozark and getting to compete and putting on that uniform for them?
Yeah, so it's definitely a lot different than high school. Jumping from high school to college, there's obviously a lot more mileage. There's a lot more work. You learn a lot more. Like really, the running is only a part of the equation. You have all the recovery modalities. You have to make sure you're getting the rest you need, the nutrition that you need. So it was nice to like really learn about the sport because in high school, you kind of just do whatever your coach tells you to do, and you don't think about the rest of it. But once you get to college, you have a lot more free time, and you're asking a lot more questions to your coach because college coaches are a lot better about explaining like, okay, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. So it was nice, obviously, to compete. There's a lot more different events in college as well, but the biggest thing for me was just really like having a deep knowledge of the sport going through college.
What were some of your collegiate accomplishments as an athlete?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm a lot better coach than I ever was an athlete, but I was the runner of the week in our conference at the Ozarks for track and cross country one week my freshman year, and then the highest I ever placed was in steeplechase at our conference meet one year. I got third overall, so it was cool to pick up like a brand new event and then place fairly well in that event. So yeah, steeplechase is definitely was my event in college track, and placing third was is pretty cool. Fourth and fifth are obviously cool, but once you kind of crack into that top three, you kind of get a little bit more confidence in yourself.
Going to Berryville, what was that experience like being a high school coach on the high school level?
Yeah, so that was definitely really cool. I went to Berryville, and so it was cool teaching and coaching at my alma mater. And then again, just Drew Killingsworth was my high school coach, and whenever I got the teaching position at Berryville, I reached out to him like, "Hey, I would love to volunteer assistant coach with you." And he was like, "I've actually been thinking about stepping away." So I was definitely a little nervous because I wanted to learn from him a little bit too before just stepping into that head role, but it was nice that he trusted me enough because his daughters also ran on the team. So obviously, the person that was taking over meant a lot to him. So it was cool teaching and coaching at my alma mater, like I said, and then just Drew Killingsworth was kind of like a mentor for me in coaching and just in my life in general. So because I would start going to his church as well because he's a pastor, and about 85% of our cross country team went to that church. So it was cool getting to know him outside of practice and competition, letting them see you at church, that kind of stuff. Because as a teacher, obviously, we can't bring our faith in God into it because it's against the law, but you kind of get into that gray area whenever you all go to the same church. So it was cool being back in my hometown, being able to spend time with my family, coaching out your alma mater, getting to know all your athletes on like a more personal level than I think a lot of other coaches get the opportunity to.
What was that like getting that taste of being a head coach on the high school level?
Yeah, it was, that first year there's a big learning curve. I'm not gonna lie. There's a big difference between, being an athlete and then being a coach. You really don't see all the background stuff that your coach does. So you really just see them in like practice and competitions, but like hosting cross country meet, hosting track meets, there's a lot that goes into that you as an athlete doesn't see. And then obviously like all the office clerical paperwork type stuff. So that was the biggest difference. A lot of people think coaching is pretty easy, I think, but there's a lot of long days in there too. You're working a lot of hours, you're sacrificing a lot of weekends to spend with your athletes, which obviously it's rewarding and you love it. That's why you do it. But definitely like you don't see all the background stuff and how much time coaches spend preparing for meets, getting the training plan together, and then cleaning up after meets, hosting all those events, that kind of thing. All the stuff you don't think about really.
For you, what was that transition like going from coaching on the high school level to getting onto the college level and coming here?
Yeah, again, there's been a big learning curve. I'd say the biggest thing, again, like whenever I was a high school athlete, you just do whatever your coach tells you to do. There's not too many questions. Where once you get to the college level, those kids they know what's going on. They're going to be able to know if you're Chat GPTing something, that kind of thing, and you really want to explain why you're doing things. You want them to learn about the sport as they're going through it, even if they're not going to be a coach later on. Again, like I didn't think I was going to be a coach, but look at me now. So just trying to pour into them what was poured into me. And then probably the biggest thing's been from the high school level, coaching your mid distance runners. You kind of coach them the same as your long distance runners because anyone that's doing the 800s also going to be your 1 mile, 2 miler people. Whereas college, they specialize in certain events a little bit more. And mid distance is just a weird event because you kind of have to tailor it to individuals more. There's some mid distance runners that do pretty high mileage and you obviously hit like longer speed workouts. And then there's some mid distance runners that they're shorter mileage and you do a lot more like sprint type workouts. So mid distance has been the biggest learning curve for me this year. Then obviously again, like there's a lot of different events in college. So I'm obviously really enjoying coaching the steeple chasers. So getting to coach an event that was my favorite event in college. Besides that, just learning a lot more about field events as well. Whenever I was in high school, I kind of took the mid distance and long distance group, and that's pretty much all I coached. I had the assistant coaches do all the other stuff. But Tabor, I've been trying to learn more about the field event aspect. Being a distance coach, I obviously wasn't a field event guy, so there's been a lot of research just learning about all the events that you didn't necessarily do in college yourself. Like I'm helping out the javelin throwers, and we had a conversation like, "Oh, Coach Wood, did you throw javelin in college?" I was like, "No, like I didn't know anything about it until this year too, guys." So we're kind of in this together. So just learn all the different events, and then again, like looking at schedule of events, so you're not having anyone do back-to-back events. That's pretty important. So just all the different events, basically, and then learning about the field event aspect.
For you as a coach, what was that feeling like stepping onto the college level and coming to coach on the college level?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a dream job. It's tough to get into the college coaching world, especially when you start off at the high school level, and experience is really key. So just getting the opportunity at a college is a big deal because you get that experience. And then again, like our head track coach is Aaron Capehart, and him and I ran together in college. So the fact that I got the chance to coach at a college level, get my dream job, is very exciting. And then to know the person you're working with really well. Like I couldn't have asked for a better first opportunity, really, because we are pretty close and we're able to communicate really well, which is important. So I mean, obviously, again, like it's tough to get into the college coaching world. So just getting in, like it means a lot because they're really taking a chance on you, especially when you didn't have college experience. So
For you, what is it like getting to coach the cross country and being the head cross country coach?
Yeah, so that's obviously my favorite part. I like track, but I'm definitely a cross country guy, and it's been nice because you can really expect a lot more out of your athletes than the high school level. They have a lot more free time, so we're able to have 2 to 3 practices a day. You're able to implement all the things you knew you should be doing in high school, but they just frankly didn't have the time because in high school, a lot of your athletes are doing multiple sports, whereas once you get to college, like they're focusing on just running. So being able to do like the workouts that I really wanted them to do, being able to meet for the recovery modalities, get 2 lifts in a week, talk about nutrition, that type of stuff, and then you're able to spend more time with them versus college. So I think I have a lot better relationship with my athletes than whenever I was in high school because again, you're just able to spend more time with them, and it's nice to get to know them because if they don't know you and trust you as a person, it's going to be harder for them to know and trust you as a coach. And they're able to just stop by the office to talk about concerns or like, hey, coach, this last race this weekend, like the race plan was really good. I enjoyed it. So just having that chance to communicate with your athletes a lot more has been really the nicest thing, in my opinion.
What does a typical track meet look like versus what a cross country meet would look like?
Yeah, so the easy answer there is a lot more time. There's a lot of sitting around, just hanging out with the team, waiting for your events and stuff. Whereas cross, you really just have the 2 races. If the men are racing, the women are warming up, and then if the women are racing, the men are cooling down. So you just have the couple races that you make the race plans for, and then you're out of there. You're home by 1 or 2 o'clock. Whereas track, there's a lot more sunburns, trying to put the sunscreen on and stuff, and just a lot more downtime. But I do like track because there's a lot more like your teammates are able to cheer you on during your races because they're sitting around, obviously. And then again, just like there's a lot of different events, and there's definitely a lot more race plans for me to make versus cross because cross they all do the same race. You make everyone one race plan, whereas track you'll have people in four events, so that's 4 different race plans for 20 to 30 people. So there's a lot more prep work whenever it comes to track, getting their splits and stuff. So there's a lot more time commitment for me during track versus cross, even though cross is my favorite sport. But so that time and then the training plans take a lot more time again because everyone's doing different things and everyone specializes in a lot of different areas.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
Yeah, so the big ones are St. Mary, Kansas Wesleyan, and then Evangel. I will speak on Evangel pretty good. They had a great year this year. They recruited really well. And then another college that I'll throw in there is Sterling. I really respect what Sterling College is doing a lot. I really like Coach Mason out there. He's probably the coach that I talk to the most in our conference. But St. Mary and KW, we're in one of the most competitive NAIA conferences in the country. So it's nice to kind of watch how they do things. I've learned a lot just observing the other colleges and how they structure their race days and stuff. And St. Mary and KW are again some of the best NAIA teams in the country. So it again like this getting this opportunity at this college, especially like this, I couldn't have asked for a better first job.
What does a typical meet look like at home versus away?
Yeah, so there's a lot more prep work if you're hosting a meet. There's a lot more into it than people realize because you're trying to get timers, you're trying to get quotes. So you obviously want to host, but you're also trying to not lose money at the same time. And then just reaching out to other teams like, hey, are you guys interested in coming to our home meet? Because once a school starts hosting a certain weekend, that's kind of your weekend. So it's tough to start hosting because you're either trying to steal somebody's weekend or you're putting it on a weekend that most teams aren't racing because the difference between high school and college again is high school you're typically racing every single weekend, whereas college a lot of teams race every other weekend. So there are some open weekends there, but again, like there's a lot of teams not racing certain weekends. Whereas if you're just traveling, like there's not really a lot for you to plan. You're just showing up. All you really have to figure out is, hey, how are we getting there, and what are we eating after? Because as cross country runners, if you know where you're eating after, that can kind of get you through the race because you're thinking about what you're going to eat after for sure. But yeah, just there's a lot more prep, and then figuring out where's everybody going to park, who's our timer, how much money are we spending, who's announcing. Just to put on an event like that, there's a lot of volunteers that you have to bring in. So you really have to be connected to the community, because you're going to depend on that community to help the college put on those kind of events. So it really takes a small village to host any home event, and I'll speak praises on our athletic director and our SID. They work really long hours making sure that all of our home events go well, because there is a lot of planning that goes into hosting an event. It's very rewarding, and it's nice to stay home and get that community involvement, have people come out and watch those events. But again, it takes a small village. It takes a lot of volunteers. It takes a lot of people with good hearts, and then you have to train them, because you don't want to just throw them out there and them have no idea what they're doing. You have to make sure that they know what they're doing, because they're volunteering their time for you. So you can't just throw them to the fire, you know?
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you're started to help to build for Tabor?
Yeah, so that's the thing I think. It's tough to brag on yourself as a coach. I'm getting used to it. I try to be a humble guy, but we are a private Christian college, so I think the relationships I've built with the athletes is probably what I've done the best job so far this year. And being a private Christian college, I really lean into the faith aspect. I tell a lot of our recruits, I am the cross country coach, so it's going to sound weird, but really my values for my runners is I want them to grow spiritually first and foremost. Second comes academics, because I don't care if we're breaking school records, running PRs. If we're not growing spiritually and doing well in our classes, then I'm failing them as a person. Because even if they decide to come run for me at Tabor, they're not going to be part of the Tabor cross country team for the rest of their lives. I'm trying to set them up to succeed once they leave Tabor. So really, it's the spiritual aspect has been the biggest culture that I've tried to instill. I meet with our men and women's team separately once a week for about an hour for Bible study, and I do not think I'd have as good of a relationship as I do with my athletes if it wasn't for those Bible studies. We've had a lot of pretty tough conversations, and I say, like, your college experience, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Same thing with Bible study. They can show up and I can just be the one talking and almost preaching at them the whole time. But I want them to talk as well. And both teams this year have done a great job of taking it seriously and not being afraid to talk, being bold in their faith. And I think it's really showed through a lot of what my athletes have done this year. I could talk to you all day about how many testimonies my athletes have given, how involved they are in campus and in the surrounding churches. So my team really goes out of their way to volunteer in the community. And again, I think it's important to be where your feet are. Even if you live 15 minutes away from Hillsboro, it's important to be on campus on the weekends and stuff, hang out with your team, because you're going to get out of your college experience what you put into it. You know, you can go to class and you can go back to your dorm, not get involved in the community. But our team this year has done a great job of joining groups on campus, volunteering, having a good attitude about it, and there's a difference between going to a college and being a part of a college. And I think the cross country team this year has truly been a part of Tabor College.
What does that recruitment process look like? And as a coach, what do you look at in those prospective student athletes?
Yeah, so one of the first things I ask, obviously, is, hey, can you kind of tell me a little bit about your faith? I want to get a feel for how they are there. You don't have to be a Christian to come to Tabor, but I try to tell them ahead of time, because I don't want anyone to come and be uncomfortable, because we do pray before every practice. We pray before every meet. And again, we do those Bible studies. So I want someone that's going to have a positive attitude spiritually, or at least be open to having those conversations, and then just getting a feel for how they feel about running. We do give athletic scholarships, obviously, but I never want it to feel like a job. So I want them to, first and foremost, I want them to just enjoy and love running. I don't want them to view it as a job, like, hey, who's going to give me the most money? Because I'll be honest, if you're looking for the cheapest option, Tabor is not going to be that cheapest option. I'm looking for student athletes that want to come and grow spiritually and be a part of a successful program. So looking for people that are trying to grow spiritually. They have a good GPA. They care about academics, because again, that's how my values are aligned. That third, the cross country aspect and track aspect comes third in my values, which sounds crazy because Tabor pays me to be the track and cross country coach. But again, I want to help create successful people once they leave, and then having people that want to have that close relationship with their coach, because they're more than just runners and times to me. I care about them as people first and foremost, and I have faith in my training aspects. So anyone that has a good attitude and cares about running, I can make anybody fast as long as they do what I'm telling them to do. So just looking for people that have culture is a big aspect. In my experience, teams that are close together are the most successful teams. So not just looking at someone that who's going to give me the most money, what's the biggest offer I can get, who's the biggest school I can go to, that kind of thing.
As a coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that Tabor blue and yellow jersey for the first time?
Yeah, so that's obviously a big deal. You're going from high school to college, and I mean, just being a college athlete, there's a small percentage of people that can say that. And the biggest thing, you're gonna have moments that are really big. There's gonna be really important races, but in my experience as a coach, it's not good to put more pressure on those big races. I try to tell those freshmen like, hey, it's just another race, don't because once you start psyching yourself out, that's when you're going to go out too fast. You're not going to follow the race plan. You're going to die halfway through the race. So just trying to calm them down, like, hey, I know it's your first college race, but you've been here before. You've been through this. Just do what you can do. Don't be smart about it. Don't psych yourself out. It's just another race at the end of the day. It's cool to see them in the blue and yellow, obviously, but you don't want them to go out and have a bad first race just because they're so excited to do it. Trying to calm those nerves, bring the energy level down a little bit, towards the end of the race, that's when you can start picking it up and stuff. But I just hate to see him go out too fast just because we're just super excited to be a Tabor Blue Jay, which I appreciate that, obviously, but trying to have a good first race still, calm those nerves down a little bit.
What is that like as an assistant coach getting to see those seniors putting on that jersey for the last time?
Yeah, so that's whenever it gets pretty emotional. So I mean, they spent so many hours working for you, and they've spent so many hours being a part of that college, and you really build that family atmosphere. So again, trying to just calm their nerves, like, hey, this is the last one. It's important, but let's run smart still. But then after the race, that's when you're able to have those conversations. And being a guy and being the coach, I try to hold it together after the race. But I'll be honest, there's definitely some tears shed after our last cross country race this year because you do pretty good as a coach until one of your athletes comes up. It's like, Coach Wood, I love you, man. Like, I really enjoyed having you. And that's when the waterworks come out and hugs happen, So just embracing that because you guys are a family. And even though they're going to leave that Tabor College, like, hopefully as a coach, you've built that relationship where they're still going to reach out to you and want to talk to you every now and again. So it's definitely really emotional. And we all know as adults, like once you go off, start a family, get a job, you start hearing from people less and less, and that's honestly the worst part of the job because you get to know these kids for 4 years at a time, a lot of times, and then you know that you want them to go off and be successful, but it's also like, man, I'm gonna miss seeing them every day too. So that there's no good answer for that. It's always emotional. That's the hardest part of the job, seeing them go off. It's not the same as being a parent, but again, like you've seen that those student athletes every day for the past 4 years, so you've built those relationships, and it gets emotional. So again, there's not a good answer, and I could talk about that all day, but emotions is the biggest answer there.
How is that like getting to see those players going on and getting into coaching after their playing career?
Yeah, so that's what I take a lot of pride in as a coach. Obviously, like I've been saying, I try to pour into them what was poured into me, and obviously you can do research on your own and figure some stuff out, but I'm the coach that I am today because of the coaches I had growing up. I mean, when you talk about like you're gonna a lot of jobs and careers, you'll do job shadowing hours to kind of get a feel for like, is this really what I want to do? But being a college athlete, it's almost like you did job shadowing for 4 years. So it's important to see your athletes go off to be coaches because that kind of lets you know, like, okay, I did a good job. Like they fell in love with the sport while they were running for me, and then seeing their careers after, it's like, okay, however successful of a coaching career they had, it kind of speaks to you as a coach too. It's like, what did they learn whenever they were with me, Because if they go off and they're not fully prepared, it's like, oh, I didn't do a good job like teaching them while they were here because you have them for 4 years. So again, there's a difference between telling your athletes, okay, this is what we're doing every day, and them go do it. And then there's also the aspect of like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing that, guys. You want them to understand why your training plan is set up the way it is, why you do things the way that you're doing it, and then culture aspect. Everyone's going to do things their own different way, and you can look up research and say, all right, this coach does it this way. You may do it a little bit different. So you're going to put your own spin on it as a coach, but senior athletes go off to coach, that really lets you know you did a good job. They they didn't hate running by the time that they got out of Tabor.
What are some of your future plans for the Tabor program moving forward?
Yeah, so it's definitely trying to just build a culture right now. Our men's team this next year is going to be practically a whole new team. So that can be a daunting task, but again, just focusing on the culture that you want to set, especially coming into Tabor. This is my first year, so going into your second year, obviously there's going to be some things that I change. I can definitely be a little bit more stern as a coach, but just establishing that culture, and especially with new people coming in, let them know, all right, this is how we do things here. This is how I want us to carry ourselves, because we are a private Christian college, and I preach the way that we carry ourselves is very important. Obviously, we plan to be successful. Hopefully, we win races, but how are we going to carry ourselves when we do win those races? A big pet peeve of mine as a coach is I hate seeing athletes celebrate on the track as they're finishing, because to me, you're making it about yourself in that moment when like your coach and your teammates want to celebrate with you too. Once you get into the infield, you can do whatever you want to do. But I don't like us making it about ourselves. I want us to celebrate with the team, and then at the end of the day, all the glory goes to God. So we should never make it about ourselves, and just instilling that, because the way your athletes carry themselves and act is a big reflection on one, Tabor College itself, and then me as a coach. What are you willing to put up with as a coach goes a long way. If you see something that you don't like but you don't address it, then whenever they do that thing, that's on you as a coach. So definitely just instilling that culture that we've set this year, and with the new kids coming in, letting them know this is how we carry ourselves. And then obviously we're going to tweak some training plan stuff, get a little bit higher mileage in, but culture is the most important thing to me, and just carrying forward what I established this year is going to be the big thing next year.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen?
Yeah, so summer training is the most important thing. Summer gets really hard because you're by yourself. You can lose motivation. It's super hot outside, especially in Kansas. So I don't care what time of day that they run. I don't care if they're running at 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, whenever it's cooler, like that's fine. But summer training's the big thing. You cannot come into the fall out of shape. If we come into the fall out of shape when we have bad races, I'll be honest, I have no sympathy for you, because you have to put yourself in a place to succeed. The old cliche I like to use is champions are not made in the fall; they're made over the summer. So taking your summer training important is the biggest thing, and that's tough. And I can tell them to do whatever I can, but at the end of the day, they have to be intrinsically motivated to do it. Just like in a race, I can yell at them and I can tell them before the race all the things I want them to do, but they have to do it during the race. They have to train over the summer when nobody's watching. Nobody's telling them, okay, practices at this time. So summer training is the biggest thing, in my opinion.
What advice would you give those seniors looking to go into competing professionally or getting into coaching?
Yeah, so kind of both sides. Obviously, if you can continue your running career, again, that percentage of people that continue to run after college is even shorter than the amount of college athletes. But if you have the athletic ability to do that, I encourage them to chase that, because we do have a lot of athletes on our team that are capable of doing that. And it's easy to want to go off and just start a job. And again, like once you get a career, you start a family, extra time becomes a lot smaller and smaller. But being a professional athlete, I mean, there nothing beats that. Just being able to continue that running career, and then people get into coaching. You want to encourage them. I tell them money is only a small part of life. One of my college coaches told me growing up, no matter how much money you make, you're going to spend it. You may live in a little nicer house, a little nicer car, but that doesn't classify you as a person. So I want them to find a college that's going to fit them and put them in a place to succeed. Just like recruits, like I don't encourage them to find the biggest school that's going to hire them. They need to find the school that they're going to like the most and be the most successful in, because quality of life is a lot more important than the money that you make, which that can kind of contradict yourself, because if you're making more money, quality of life is going to be better. But do you enjoy where you're at? Do you enjoy what you do? Do you enjoy the people that you work with? Because the people that you work with is really going to determine how happy you are every day. Do you have a boss that you enjoy? What kind of boss is he? And again, I'll brag on Jeff Brewer, because he's probably the best athletic director that I've worked with. He's not afraid to get after you whenever you do something wrong. But the thing that I like about Tabor is they'll address problems, but then they also talk about, okay, how can we fix these things? Where in the past I've had some bosses or I've been observed as a teacher, they're real quick to critique things that you're doing, but there's no solutions to it after. There's no conversation like how can we fix these things. They're just pointing out the things that you're doing bad, but there's no conversation of how can we do better? How can I support you as a person more, you know?
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media along with the program at?
Yeah, I think my Instagram is Coach Wood _2024. That's really the biggest one that I'm on right now is Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at Jonathon Wood. If you type it in, I'll have a blue hoodie on. I haven't been a big social media person in the past. I just got an Instagram whenever I got this job to help with recruiting and stuff. So I do believe that's my tag, and I can send it to you after the interview as well.
Thank you again, Coach Jonathon Wood, for your interview, and best luck in your future at Tabor as the assistant track and field coach.
I appreciate it. It was an honor.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Jonathon Wood, for your interview, and best luck in your future.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.